Hey there. Today, we're tackling a story that's not just about courtrooms and legal jargon. It's about real people, real challenges, and the fight for fairness. We're diving into the groundbreaking legacy of Lau versus Nichols, a Supreme Court case that shook the foundations of how we think about language access, not just in schools, but across our entire society, including healthcare. Imagine a world where you couldn't understand your doctor, your child's teacher, or the instructions on a vital document. This wasn't a far-off fantasy for many in the 1970s. In San Francisco, thousands of Chinese American students were essentially locked out of their classrooms because they didn't speak English. While the school district argued that everyone had the same access, these students were struggling, and that's when a group of determined students and their families said, "Enough."
Mrs. Lau came in to our parent-teacher conference, and she said, "Miss Lee, I come from Hong Kong, and we speak English and Mandarin and Cantonese. Why can't you, as a Cantonese-speaking teacher, why can't you teach Kinney math and Chinese?" I didn't know how to answer her.
The case of Lau versus Nichols was a class action lawsuit brought by Kinney, Kim, and Lau and others against the San Francisco Unified School District. These students argued that providing the same classrooms and textbooks wasn't equal when language barriers were ignored. This wasn't just about education. It was about fundamental fairness, about being seen, heard, and understood. They argued that the lack of language support was a violation of Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which prohibits discrimination based on race, color, or national origin in federally funded programs. The case went all the way to the Supreme Court. In a unanimous decision in 1974, the Supreme Court sided with the students, stating that identical treatment does not constitute equal treatment when it comes to students with limited English proficiency.
I had KCBS on, and the 8 o'clock news, the lead story, U.S. Supreme Court rules for Chinese-speaking students. I won! I won! I won!
The court declared that if students don't understand English, they're essentially shut out of a meaningful education. This was a watershed moment, a legal earthquake that shifted the landscape of language access in the U.S. This ruling didn't just apply to schools. It sent a ripple effect across all sectors receiving federal funds, including healthcare. Suddenly, hospitals, clinics, and healthcare providers realized that they had an obligation to provide language assistance services. Think about it: a diagnosis, a prescription, a consent form. These are all critical moments where clear communication is essential. Language barriers can lead to misdiagnosis, medication errors, and mistrust. Lau versus Nichols' legacy helped set the stage for later policy and laws to ensure language access, not only in education, but also for patients receiving healthcare. Following Lau, the federal government created the Lau Remedies to guide schools in providing language support. This was crucial to ensuring that schools take practical steps to serve English learners. Then came the Equal Educational Opportunities Act of 1974, which reinforced the idea that no state could deny educational opportunities by failing to address language barriers. In the healthcare sector, the principles of the Lau decision, along with Title VI of the Civil Rights Act, have been crucial in shaping the policy and laws about language access. Executive Order 13166, issued in 2000, mandated all federal agencies to ensure individuals with limited English proficiency have meaningful access to programs and services. The Affordable Care Act also included key language access provisions prohibiting discrimination based on national origin, including language. But here's the thing: these laws are only as good as their implementation. Many healthcare organizations still struggle to provide adequate language services. A recent study revealed that nearly a third of hospitals don't offer interpretation services. This lack of implementation can lead to unequal care, higher costs, and even legal issues for healthcare providers. The problem isn't necessarily that providers don't want to comply, it's that they don't always have the resources or guidance to do so effectively. Many smaller practices find the financial burden of providing interpretation services challenging. This is further complicated by the fact that, unlike for other services, there is no direct reimbursement for interpretation services in the healthcare sector. It's an unfunded mandate, which puts the financial burden on the providers. What can we do about it? First, we must understand the problem. The need for language access in both education and healthcare is not just a matter of legal compliance, it is also about respecting the dignity and human rights of all individuals. Here are a few actionable steps for the healthcare sector. Know your community. Research the demographics of the people you serve. Use data from the U.S. Census and other sources to determine what language needs are present. Assess language needs. Systematically ask patients about their preferred language and document it in their health records. Research language assistance options. Hire bilingual staff and contract with reputable interpreter services and take advantage of discounts for ADA members. Ensure all staff working with patients in other languages have the appropriate skills. Establish clear policies. Develop written policies regarding how to assess and document patient needs, use of interpreters, and verification of multilingual staff proficiency. Train your team. Train your team on effective communication, cultural competency, how to work with interpreters, and why using family or friends for interpretation is not appropriate. Advocate for reimbursement. Push for adequate reimbursement from insurance companies and state and federal agencies for language assistance services. In addition, we also need to be aware of the historical context surrounding language rights. For example, the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882, which banned Chinese immigration to the United States for 100 years, led to stereotypes of Asians as perpetual foreigners. These stereotypes have negatively impacted the ability of many non-English speaking groups to fully participate in society. We also need to be aware of other historical legal cases, such as Myers versus Nebraska, Cerna versus Portales, Aspira versus New York, Rios versus Reed, and Castaneda versus Pickard. These court cases collectively demonstrate that access to language is a fundamental civil right. The legacy of Lau versus Nichols is still unfolding. While the case was initially focused on education, it has greatly influenced language access across various sectors. As our society becomes increasingly diverse, ensuring equal access to language is more important than ever. We can continue to build on the progress made by the plaintiffs in Lau versus Nichols by taking a holistic approach and ensuring language support in all areas of life, education, healthcare, and beyond. Thank you for joining me today in exploring the enduring legacy of Lau v. Nichols. Let's carry forward its spirit and continue to advocate for a more just and equitable world, one where language is never a barrier to opportunity. Be sure to check out the resources in the description below for more information on this important topic, including links to organizations that support language access. Until next time, take care.